Welcome to Business Cake, the show for people who build their ideas. Josh Schairbaum is a historian, technologist, and a friend. And Patrick and I sit down with him to discuss something that's on everybody's minds: artificial intelligence. In his day job, Josh helps Fortune 500 companies implement AI solutions, but for fun, in his own time, AI helps Josh build worlds, remember his loved ones, and become a better person. Josh shares about a couple of these projects that he's worked on. One is used to preserve the memory of his grandmother. Another, where he has created a historical fiction world spanning 37 years with over 200 characters. He's the smartest person I know when it comes to AI because of how he has learned to work with it and how he's able to help others use it. This conversation is for you. Josh will get into 4 principles that will help you in your own engagement with AI. It will broaden and deepen your understanding of it. It will challenge your own perspectives. I think more than that, though, it will help you think about your own legacy and path to becoming a better human. All right, let's dive in. So, Josh, what do you do?
Okay, so a lot during the time I work for a company called NLX that automates conversational applications, and it's an amazing technology company, and that is one compartment of my life. But I think the reason why we're here today is to talk about this other kind of emerging and kind of a foundational or a keystone portion of my life, and it's a creative project called the Great Western Wrestling Alliance, and it is the most basic way to say it is I've created a fictional pro wrestling promotion that started in 1957 and ends in 1993. And I am creating it down to the individual match and TV episode, the history of it. I have 200 and some odd wrestlers across the entirety of the 36 years. I have a bunch of storylines. I have example merchandise. I'm actually wearing merchandise. I do it a lot to, there's kind of this parody of, I started it really because it's a project that I use to learn AI, use like the applicable, bits of AI. And I mean, maybe the origin, would you like to know the origin first, or with that, do you have other questions first? But it's my creative project, and I think it's done some meaningful things for me, and I'm eager to talk about them further, but I actually I want to have more of a conversation.
Yeah, no, this is great. So I think, Josh, let's get into why you started it.
Sure. So I was at a time in my life where I was feeling a fairly strong detachment from my own, value, because I had placed it directly on my labor at my job, and that was not giving me, regardless of the financial, regardless of what I was being paid, I was not. I was deeply unsatisfied with what I was putting out in the world and what I was doing. So I took some time off. And the most basic, this is the moment, I was sitting in my son's room, just kind of, it's kind of a quiet spot, for everyone when he's not there. It was during the school day. And he had this little plastic wrestling set that I had bought him, and just really tiny little cheap wrestlers. And I took a picture of it with my phone, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to put 2 or 3 together, and I'm going to make a little stop motion video, and not, realizing like, man, that's so hard. You know how many pictures go into a stop motion video?
Yes.
But anyways, that was also the same day that one of the AI companies launched a feature where you could upload a photo, and then in multimodality, it would explain what that photo was. So I uploaded this very close-up picture of these fake wrestlers, and I said, tell me a story about what's going on here. And the story it gave really just like reignited my kind of attachment to pro wrestling as a kid. And, the stories of good and bad and friendship and betrayal and, like it all really kind of, even now it's kind of flooding back on me. Right. And, I think that, we just, that's why I started it, right? So it was like really interesting, and it was a world that I wanted to know more about. And I think like a lot of people in business that are obligated to sell something or obligated to do something with a new technology, you don't really have time to play. You don't have time to be introspective about your own use of it. And if there's any lesson outside of the pro wrestling stuff that anyone wants to hear, like you should be exploring your own use of AI for your own uses. Do not listen to anyone else. There's a time to listen to other people for sure, but get the experience, like speak from knowledge. And so
So on that, Josh, I just want to zoom in on AI just real quick, because your job is helping large corporations with AI type conversations where they like customer service and that kind of thing, putting up frameworks for that. But then for fun, you've used AI to create the Great Western Wrestling
Alliance. It's, even though it's GWA, I got an extra W in there.
Okay, Great Western Wrestling Alliance. But then also like you've used it to help you like plan and think out your own, hey, what do I want to do this year? What is going to bring me satisfaction this year? So you are immersed in AI. You're very comfortable with it. Just I don't even know what the question is, but maybe how did you get that way, or why do we not need to be afraid of AI?
Well,
that's a different question. Answer.
Right, that was
okay. Sorry.
Let's come back.
I'll come back to the second part, or actually, let's address the first thing, which is like righteousness, right? And I do think a lot about it. And so I spent some time learning about training methods. And I think that there's absolutely a poor labor practice that are going on with regards to how models are trained. And I think of, but inherently it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like that's not that's just a case of us humans choosing it to be that way, right? And can
you explain what you mean by that, though?
Sure.
So, I get lost.
So AI requires a few people to consistently label and grade data in order to train the models to operate effectively at runtime. And so the challenge with what is going on with these people is typically they are what they are doing is they are having I'm just going to give an example. ChatGPT, for example, give a response to something, and then they're going to say, "Oh, that's not a good response. That's a bad response." Right? Like, there's several passes of this. This is called reinforcement learning through human feedback, with human feedback, not through human feedback, with human feedback. And so, there is typically these are like offshore people, and they are not paid well. And a lot of times it's also the same group that ends up having to do a lot of the content moderation. I think business process outsourcing, that it ends up being not people that work for the companies. Anyway,
so at its core, like if that was better quality, we would get a different product. And so you're saying just like that quality level of the labeling and of the reinforcement is not being done as well as it could be.
No, more I'm saying is that outside the technology, the outcomes at all, I think the big knock on it is that the labor practice with how you get it, right? And I think Now, what you give it access to once can do what it does, again, is a human problem that we're going to inject, right? AI isn't going to escape its bounds. Humans are going to not think through the safety of capturing a system that might be able to do this, right? Like it is the, move fast and break things idiots versus the people that are responsible for the incremental development of our society. So put that one on the.
That's good. I like that one.
But I really do believe that this idea that we're growing and we're expanding and you need to be doing this or you need to be doing that. I'm not AI's advocate at all, right? You don't need, like, there are plenty of people that are doing that. I'm saying this technology is going to be pervasive in our society, whether you like it or not, and it's going to be used against you. You might as well figure out how you want to use it for you. Like,
That's well said. Yeah,
is not going to relieve the suffering of others, unfortunately. I mean, I don't want to get myself in too much trouble, but let's move on to a different topic.
Yeah, there we go. Well, let's stick with the AI and tying it to your journey, because you were talking about the detachment of like where you were in that moment, and then as you uploaded this photo, can you talk about that personal process?
So there's actually one thing that actually happened after that. Like, the wrestling thing just kind of happened as a noodling thing for a while. But where I really captured it for meaning is I did an exercise, and I have a YouTube video on it where I walk through how I set out my yearly goals for 2024 using a series of prompts. One, I started with doing an analysis of my 2023 and really helped me think through what I thought was meaningful throughout the year. And then, kind of put all of that, hey, this is what I did. This is what I like doing. This is what I hated doing. This is what I found meaning. A lot of it was based on the, I'll just call it pop science Ikigai framework, which is I'm sure there's reality to it, but again, I'm just quoting from a book I've read or, partially read, where there's 4 concepts to give you like a harmonious balance in your life, what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And, wow, if you can make that a circle on your Venn diagram. Yep. But I think in a lot of ways, amazing if you can even get 2 or 3 of these things to touch. And this is what it has been for me. Was I did this exercise with AI, figuring out my goals, figuring out what I want to do. And a lot of it had to be about like outbound education about AI. Again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm not suggesting we should be pouring more money into it. That's going to happen whether I open my mouth or not. And so what I'm trying to do is so I've got the goals then. And then that gave me this attachment during the year that I could go back to say, am I working on the world that I want to have, right? Like, these are goals that had nothing to do with my work. But because of like the infinite malleability of AI output, I can just drop in the text from my goals from work and say, align these to my goals from work. And you'll have reasonable enough text that you can say, oh yeah. And now it drives my subconscious as much as it's driving my conscious, because I've now kind of linked these different aspects together.
So this is like a collaborative journalism. I mean, I like journaling of your own process, and you're putting, instead of just writing out, it's like you're getting some feedback along with it.
So the first goal process was a lot of feedback. It interviewed me. Right? Like I set it up to interview me about. I'll share you the prompts, Will, and you guys can send them out. And it starts by kind of asking you what you loved about last year and thought about the activities that you had, and then kind of puts that into a series of notes and categorizes it for you, and even you can choose to do some evaluation of it, right, if you want, or some analysis, right, but then I take that and I start a separate one. And I start a separate one thinking about, okay, this is my year. And then I'll copy in my last year's, this is what last year was. Hey, I want to do this year, and I want to do this year. I am not a real religious goals person. So I don't say that I look at these all the time, but like, once I got them in a document in a PDF that I sent to my wife and I made her read it in the middle of the night once, it's in. Like, I know what I want to do. And
so let me just try to encapsulate real quick. So you started bad moment or bad year, and so you started this process and it began to kind of like give form to these 4 areas of life. And
absolutely.
For you, yeah. And it started to focus more of where the things you care about are the things you're spending time on.
Absolutely. And also by taking that like deeper, like higher order perspective, I now see where they move on the board together. Right. And I can begin to place my pieces. I'm a military history major, so I'm going to use war pieces, like military pieces. I can use my battle, like, okay, I can put them there because I know that they're going to start converging because I'm now seeing. Oh, and the other thing is I turned off everything that has to do with the outside world. Like I don't
social media, news,
I've
etc.
uninstalled it. I have to pay attention enough to it for doing things for my work, obviously LinkedIn and like Instagram for sharing pictures of my works. But I also I'm a Bear County. I got to volunteer again, but I was at Bear County elections. Like I'm volunteering. I'm focusing on the world that I don't have delusions of grandeur. They're not going to build any statues of me. I am just going to hopefully leave behind a legacy of people that are carrying forward the love that I share.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, and let me make an observation and draw a parallel and tell me what you think about it. But some people would use other people for this exercise, like a coach or counselor or something, a consultant maybe.
Yeah. That's very true. And I am, I give high praise to expertise of people in other places. Like I did not do this approach because I eschew what job coaches or other career people do. For me, AI has such a rapid feedback loop that I can ask such pointed questions so vulnerably. Yeah, I'm not worried about Sam Altman reading my threads, right? Like and I get that everyone
China can have that data.
Right. And everyone might not have the same comfort level. And I acknowledge that for their own experiences of their life. But for me and where I'm at in the world, so it is, I've told Will this before. I use it really 2 ways. One to do divergent thinking, and then one to do convergent thinking. So divergent thinking is where I've got a problem before me, and I don't know what the solution could be, and so I need to expand my solution space. I need to expand what I'm thinking about, and that's where I use AI to give me a list of somethings, right? And I am not looking for fact out of that. I am looking for that's it. That's what I wanted, right? And it's almost like give me a list of garbage that's been in my head before, right? Like is really kind of that's been in thousands of people's heads, right? And then I lost my train of thought on
convergent thinking. You told us with divergent
thinking, right? So then once I come to here's a series. Now I'm thinking about this is the solution. So now I say this is what I've come to. Evaluate it, find the holes, look around the corners, look at it from this perspective, how, and you can do that with your communication. You can do that with your data. You can do that with, whatever. I know, God, it sounds like I'm AI's advocate. I really am not.
No, I think, I mean,
Hey, don't worry
Josh,
about that. You said you weren't. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think there is, to use this term, you do have a relationship with AI. Like there is like a communication back and forth.
Sure. Absolutely.
Where it's
I'll echo the principles that were well articulated in Ethan Malick's book, Co-Intelligence, which I recommend to every one of your listeners if they've not already heard it. And Dr. Malick is a startups entrepreneurship professor at Wharton School of Business. And he wrote a book about how we can use AI to augment our intelligence as opposed to continually thinking about replacement or whatever. And there's 4 principles that have to do it. First of which is bring AI to everything, right? You just have to get over your own mental hurdles about, you have to start thinking about yes, can't think about no, right? And that's hard. I acknowledge it, right? But then 2 is you have to be the human in the loop though. AI is doing its thing, but you drive the intention, you are accountable, you are responsible, right? Like all of those things, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is treat AI like a person, but tell it what type of person to be. And I'll pause there for 1 second and say there is, I think, a real risk of people treating AI and confusing it as if it is a real person, and that is not what this particular aspect of it is about. And I know for some folks that's going to be hard to detach. But the reason why this advice, this 3rd principle is there, is that the current generation is large language models, and large language models were trained by generating a giant graph of tokens, which are the relationship between individual elements in our language, right? I won't call them syllables because they're not syllables, but they're just kind of collections of tokens and the relationships with them. So if you interact with AI and you don't treat it like a person, or you don't use human language, you are swimming upstream against how it's functioning, and just it's for your own usage. It's not for it, right?
No, I like that. So treat it like a person, but understand that it's not like you're the human in this interaction.
Yeah. And the second part of that was tell what type of person to be. So you can say, act as an expert marketing designer, evaluate my logo, and tell me what should be improved.
So I have a question about that. Just practically, maybe this is tangential. We can come back, but if you don't tell it that, and you ask the same question, right? What, like, you're going to get like bland results, or what's the difference there?
I think it is really the different. You are trusting entirely on the people that are making the models and training the models to identify your intention, to understand the words that you've used in a way that gets your output. I think it helps you get closer to what your intention is and not what OpenAI's intention.
You just have to tell it, like, this is my intent. I'm focusing on this specific aspect. So when you respond, engine, come back to me with that, matching that. Okay, no, that makes sense.
And I'll tell you. Oh, and then just the last 4th principle is the worst AI you're ever going to use. Right? You're only going to use better. Right? So keeping that in mind with, how should I be thinking about a future where and the other principle he's got is the jagged frontier, right? Like AI is not a traditional automation technology in that it automates a process from soup to nuts, right? It automates this part, this part, this part, this part, and it still requires the human to be the human in the loop. So, yeah, okay. So, but telling it what time. The other thing is, I really don't write any of my own prompts. I set up projects in all of the services that have kind of prompt best practices in there, and then I vomit my own pidgin English in there in whatever mood I'm in, and then it spits out the most glorious, pristine prompt delivered from Saint Michael himself. that has things that you had never even considered to ask an AI, or to ask about your and I'm doing a lot of deep research using a variety of services, but I think the key is, until you get a comfort level, have something else write your prompts for you, because you will get such better output than. I mean, it's like Nate Bargatze has the comedy bit about he goes to Google and it's like he never gets to the real internet. They're like, oh, send this guy to the circus internet, right? Like, if you just rely on what it gives you without being explicit about it, it's almost like getting sent to the circus internet, right? And I think it also then it marries it to your intention more.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Okay.
So taking these bits, I mean, I think one of the things we love to talk about here is reifying, having an idea and then making it real. I think it's fun to hear as you're talking, because we and the listeners probably start to put together how, like, you were making this idea real of the Great Western Wrestling Alliance. But so we see your passion converging. We see like how you're using it. You're getting collaborative with AI, calibrating with it on your own goals.
Yeah.
And then somewhere this passion for wrestling starts to come back up. You're talking about connecting with your childhood. There's probably like mental health there where you're getting grounded with that. And then how did that start to become real?
Yeah. I think there are like several things that are just we'll put on the pin board. One is, one night I was sitting on the back of my deck, avoiding the world. It was middle of the night, very quiet in San Antonio, and I read this tweet that was like an assassin's bullet to my brain, and it said, "I'm sorry, but if you're not using technology to write love letters to humanity, what are you doing?" And as someone who knows exactly how I could use technology to do that, I felt immediately convicted of like, oh, damn, right? Like, and so the goal setting, all of that has been, what does that mean for me, right? And so the GW, one part of it was just like screwing around with my kids a little bit. And I just got to say, like, a meaningful experience for me is seeing my son and his fourth grade teacher standing in a hallway, both wearing t-shirts of characters that I created. And he's talking about how much my son loves writing stories and asks for pen and paper every chance he gets. Right? Like,
that's beautiful.
Being able to create coloring book pages. This is AI, right? Like, I'm not saying I am doing it, but it's my intention, right? So, and no one else could make AI do what I do, right? So, I being able to make coloring book pages about characters that he created in his, like, he imagined, and I've now, made real, and that's awesome. That's been awesome. So it was one, like this convergence, and also just something that I kind of hit on earlier, and then I forgot to hit the point of, when you're in your job, you really don't get to learn the tools really that you have to use, and that every one of the tools that you're kind of excited about in your job, you would love to spend an hour or two more just kicking around at it, right? Whether it's Google Sheets, and I mean, I know a lot of people hate it or whatever, but like, I think this is a passion project that is now something that I am making real. And why am I making it real? I think my wife would like to know too.
That's so good.
I think there's several things about why I'm making this real. So one, this is an artistic project, right? Like, this is not. I think it can be commercially successful, but there's two things about it. One, I know enough about these people that I have to find out what happened to them. I have to know what happened to them, and only I can find that out right now, right? So that's part of it. And then I think that initially it was, I look, it's hard being a public figure, right? Like, especially someone that's been considered a hero. But I can't find out anything more about my childhood heroes, and how they have fallen short of their own projected values. And so I thought, well, I still want to have heroes that have to wrestle with things. And I don't mean that as a pun, right? Like I promise you, I will never use it as a pun. I just that still wrestle with reality and with life, but then, maybe choose to do the right thing when there's nobody else in the room, and maybe that they choose to suffer because of it, right? And I don't want to give away too much about the end of the GWA, but what if someone really chose the legacy, their legacy about what they were building over the money that it would capture for them, right? And what would that even mean? That wasn't the binary choice of you sell it or you set it on fire, right? Like, like what does that look like? So it is a lot of my own inspection of my business beliefs, and I'm with a company that's totally aligned with my beliefs right now. So I just, don't want to give a shout out to the leaders there.
That's awesome.
But look, we've gotten, America's a lot of people getting rich because they have leverage over other people's paycheck, right? And what if you like started a business in the 50s and 60s that like really like had revenue sharing and had like what you put into it, you get out of it. So that was interesting to it. The other thing is I've got like bad osteoarthritis and I've had 2 joints replaced. And so just from like a scientific perspective, while the outcomes are scripted and the moves are not necessarily engaged in the way that you think they are, like there's no way to avoid some of that pain, right? Or most of the pain, right, that you see that goes on in a wrestling ring. And like Jack Mick Foley, right, is a prime example, right? The getting thrown off a cell or the cage 30 feet onto onto nothing, onto a table, onto a wood table, right? And why do you do it, right? And so it was a lot of my own inspection of that, and it really is like, oh God, it must feel so addicting to be in front of people, right? Like it must, like the story that they are telling to the world through their performance is like, it's obviously it's very important to them, right? And I was a military history major and I minored in English literature and I took some creative writing classes, and I saw something, Rick Rubin, if you know him. Rick Rubin was the producer of the Beastie Boys and Run DMC and Aerosmith in the beginning. And if you now see on Instagram, he's living at the Maui, the one in White Lotus. He's got, angelic robes on, and he's got his super long white beard. And he said, wrestling is the only real thing that's in our society.
Interesting.
It's the only thing that presents itself for what it actually is. And then the example he goes into, a job opening up on the website, you don't know if that's already been given to somebody internally. You don't know if that's not a real job that somebody, like, they're just obligated to offer that to you and he lists several other things. And I don't know, that's the healthiest perspective in life to have, but I've run with it in some ways with this project. So.
Yeah.
Well, you strike me as an author almost. Like, if I think about, I don't know what you think about these people, but like Tolkien or Rowling and with Harry Potter is like they created worlds, and what you were saying, like fiction serves us in a way that real life can't, because it does give us these heroes that we can look up to. That's why we love these movies, right? Because it's like this guy or this girl was in this moment and chose differently than probably most people actually would in those situations.
You
Or they
can
went
too. And you can do it too if you're ever in that situation, right?
Yes.
Like,
Well, and that's the thing that calls out inside of us to these stories that we connect with is it might not be taking a ring to Mordor or whatever, but we have our own situations that we're paying attention to that fiction gives us the idea, the template of how to think and approach and deal with those challenges and problems.
Absolutely. I'm not comparing myself to those authors that you named in the slightest. But the idea of world building.
I did it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I think that the depth to which, J.R.R. Tolkien was he was a linguistics professor, and he made Elven and made the Dwarven language. And I can't tell you. You remember the Sports Illustrated posters that had the single, like Joe Montana or whatever, and like I've remade. You can see it over my shoulder. I've kind of remade a parody of it, and just thinking about what were the things that we did in society. What were the common drivers training videos. I thought one of the extra revenue streams for this wrestling promotion would be to do drivers ed videos. Who else would listen to people than wrestlers? So building the world, dude. And it's also my escape, right? Like it's a world that I am the only real resident that lives in it right now. Although I will say that my wife, Carrie Boley, is the world's second most authority on the Great Western Wrestling Alliance, much to her chagrin.
That's a prestigious office right there.
Right.
I think your medium is different than traditional authors. And, that's really interesting, the way that you've not done just pen and paper, right? Like you've taken it into different arenas, and it allows you to do more things. Like maybe you aren't the world's best illustrator, but you've been able to create these coloring books or things like that.
Yeah. And I will say for that, one, I'm still finding the medium that best tells this story to others. I am a historian, and so I have to make the story first. So I could never write a book that I didn't know the history of it to begin with, right? Like that's who I am.
Josh, that's again the Tolkien comparison. But before he wrote a single story, he drew a map, and he had a map of what is Middle Earth, and he had all the places and all the different people. And then he was like, okay, I can step into a story now with this person at this point in time. And so like you are world building to an incredible extent. I mean, 37 years, over 200, I'll say characters, but narratives that are going in and out, and you have it down to, I think, salary that they make, like the events that they're doing. You've got the overall narratives, you've got the subplots going through. Like it is amazing. It really is.
Intricate. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know of another way to do it. I really don't. This is kind of inherent. I mean, you should see the spreadsheets that I have in Google Sheets. I keep a Google G Suite domain just for GWA wrestling, and my personal drive on it is 20 gigs of nothing but Google Docs and some images and not much video, no video, right? And it's no historical video, it's no historical docs or anything like that. These are all ideas that I have and how I've planned what day TV shows were recorded, what day they were broadcast in different markets. And, the thing about I'm trying to make it so that no one can disprove it, right? I'm trying to put it in places where there isn't already history, right? Like that. And that's the fun challenge for me. So
what you mean by that is like if we took it alongside our actual history, it could have happened because.
Right.
Okay, I got you.
So an example of that is one of the big ideas that I had, one of the first, I think with wrestling, you connect to moments, right? And so there were several key characters, pictures that I generated that I'm like, oh, that's it, right? Was this moment that Showdown Spectacle 76 happened in the Houston Astrodome, July 3rd. 1976. And if you could imagine, everyone would have literally been insane with 4th of July. And this was a Saturday night. Okay, so thinking about like I didn't even plan the whole card. It was just one match, which was the blow off of like this kind of 4-year thread of the betrayal and redemption of the outlaw Jesse Hawkins. And that story is about friendship and going back for your friends and not leaving them behind. And
that is awesome.
Even when you're growing apart. And that moment, then you realizing like that wasn't even the main event, right? Like, and it wasn't even until like 4 months later that I'm like, oh no, there was a bigger thing. And so I also am using this as a what if. This is not just nostalgia. I am trying to project different values forward, right? And projecting them. So one, I don't know. Well, what if wrestling wasn't birthed and run by the most heinous men on earth, right? Like that just always tried to get over on their crowds, their wrestlers, each other. I mean, it's big, let them fight territory, like go ahead, let them, and so just thinking about the most righteous promoter. And I've done research, like what made them have to act unrighteous, right? Like I everyone's environment in there, whatever is. And so, like a lot of things, I think there's a lot of it just racism, racism and greed. But thinking about, well, what would it look like? How would you still move alongside society that is still moving? I don't list any real wrestlers and I don't list any real promotions. And I actively try to not parody in my promotion. I would be surprised if you find someone you're like, oh, that's so-and-so, right? Like I go to great lengths to make original people, right? Like I am not, and wrestling is, has a thing where everyone kind of can play homage to someone because you're trying to draw off of their name. I'm really not trying to do that. Like I'm, I've set, I hate to use this name. Actually, I'm not going to. All right. So my chief lead champion through the golden age of mine is a man named the Harlem Hurricane, James Washington. And he was a black man, and he won the champion for the first time in 1974 at the World Championship. And I'll tell you, in reality, that the first time a black man won a world championship in pro wrestling was 1993. And so what would you have done in 20 years? How would crowds have acted? And that is also why I put it in the West, why I base my promotion in the American West. Not to say that there's any part of the nation that is more racist or less racist than the other, but that a lot of wrestling history already exists in the Southeast, in the Northeast, and somewhat to the Midwest. And respect to Don Owens in Portland and Roy Shire and San Francisco and the LaBelles in Los Angeles. But that's not as connected. And the West is so much bigger, right? And because it's a creative project, I grew up in the Midwest, and the first time I've seen these things in the West, I'm like, wow, it's so cool to me. So
it's awesome how you take the story and put it in the actual historical context and make it real for actual 1974 in America, and not just I'm going to make a new America in 1974. Right. And fantasy that's borderline fantasy as opposed to like historical fiction.
Yeah. Yes. It's not The Watchmen, right? Like I haven't set us off on a full nother path. Like it's a little bit like Forrest Gump, right? You keep connecting with these serendipitous moments that end up as part of history, know? And initially some of it was, I thought it'd be cool to like Mandela affect people of my own wrestling promotion, right? Like they're like, yeah, I remember the GWA, or yeah. And then also it was kind of like this own funny little bit where people are always, and I do mean the pun this time, wrestling with whether AI images are generated or real or not or whatever. And I thought, God, what a funny little joke is here's the double pun of you're wrestling about like what is real, what isn't real here.
Yeah.
So
well, we can get back to AI, but you brought up the word legacy a few times, and you know talking about leaving a legacy. So, for Josh Schairbaum, what is that? What legacy are you like? What are you interested in leaving behind?
I am. I'm really interested in leaving the world behind better than I found it, and to do that, I think it's teaching others along the way. That's really my passion, is acquiring knowledge and then sharing it with others, not for look at me, but for like, hey, I think this would really help you, right? Like, and I think that I hope will be the legacy, the positive legacy I leave, is that the people that I met, that they were inspired to go and do something, or that they got enough of the knowledge or just enough of the spark to go out and try something new on their own. And I think the best people never know their effect on the world. Right? Because it happens so deeply and so pervasively around them that they can't see it.
And quietly, maybe even it's not like out in front of, yeah.
Right.
No, that's good.
Right. And
so some of the things you want to teach aren't necessarily, it could be AI, but it could just be inspirational for people to make a difference, to better the people around them where they are.
Yeah.
Regardless of getting anything back.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not selling a business. There's nothing on that GWA I'm selling. Like I am teaching people this because I think that they can get more time in their life to spend with their children, because they're able to take their little screenshot, children's swim schedules and turn it into a text message really quick with AI, right? Like it can just turn it into one medium to a next, or okay, so here's another thing that was legacy. This was another early thing that I did with AI that really kind of inspired me and ignited my need to do this. And that is, I had a series of diaries that my grandmother left her 5 grandchildren when she passed away. We did not know that she had kept these diaries. She had one for each of us, and she wrote in it every time that she was with us from the time we were born until we were in high school. And like, what a treasure. Like, and after she died, so I've taken mine and I typed I paid my daughter to type it all up. and then I put it as the knowledge of an AI. And I did not at all try to recreate her voice. I made a digital narrator of her life. And, but that one that kind of understood her inner thoughts and perspectives and could say, in situations like that, in the time I was taking off, I was also dealing with some depression, and like being able to ask an AI, what did my grandma love about me? And having an answer be so true, be so real, and really come from her, uses quotes from her, but not, right? Like it's not fooling me into, she's not coming back, right? Right? Like, we'd all be better off if she did, though.
Yes.
But, that notwithstanding, like I think that building our memory for each other is another aspect of AI that I think, another idea that I had that I haven't executed on is you have a service, call your parents every day, once a day, and they get asked a question about their life, and they just, in a conversational way, they tell a story. And now you got a story recorded for your kids. for them in a non-invasive way that your parents, like it's a phone call, right? And even for Alzheimer's patients, then you get a phone call and you get a memory played back to you.
Yeah.
Right? And connecting us back with our memory. I did some at the start of this also for the Ikigai thing, the goal setting thing, I think is really probably the meaningful thing that we should, take away from this is, and I'll send you a link to the YouTube video because I narrate a lot of it. It really set, it really set most of my, okay, these are how these things, this is what the world needs. This is what I am good at. This is what I love doing. And unfortunately for last year, I didn't do a lot of what the world can pay me for. And I was a little embarrassed by how little the world was interested in paying me at times. But I just, I am reset as a person, and I think technology has helped me do it. I've received other, traditional doctors, whatever, but
Yeah. Well, I think it takes a lot of courage to do that, Josh. And I think it's cool that you have devoted the time and the practice to getting good at that. And it's interesting because a lot of people bring up AI and immediately we're going to business, right? Or money or social security numbers, like the data that they're going to mine and things, or like how
day
can we
trading.
yeah, there you go, anything like that. But this is like a different direction with it. I mean, it's still AI, but it's like the human or the value based side, or it's like the personal side. It's like capturing your grandmother's voice and stories in a way that can give them back to you is something I've never thought about AI could do, or even I haven't seen that anywhere. Of course, I'm not a student of it like you are, but I think that is really special.
And I think the examples, Josh, that you've given, they're ones where they are enhancing your own humanity, right? Without getting roles confused, without thinking that AI is becoming your grandmother, or, it's like, the proper place for it, but it's also, this thing is available to feed back something to you that is helpful in that moment, that helps. And I appreciate your emphasis on the humanity piece, and I think knowing those roles.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, I got to tell a story about your brother.
Yeah, let's hear it.
And your brother and the team that he built has given me really the most meaningful work experience of my life. And so I did some work with them. I was the technical lead on it and was doing work for Will's tremendous and amazing phone team, who I've now hired several from at points in times. I was given the All Company Award for the period of time, and I understand why I was given it, but I think they could have given it to lots of people that were on that project. But they made a nice little video for me. A couple of people on Will's team did. So the next day, I go up just to say, "Hey, thanks for that." Right, and his whole team gave me a standing ovation. And
wow,
I've never felt more appreciated in my life. And you don't get people doing that in a corporate environment unless their leader sets that as the tone. And so this is actually a story about Will and what an amazing leader he is.
That's great. That's good culture.
Thank
and
you,
Will
Josh.
is a good guy. I can. It's cool to see it. Well, I mean, people probably have that inside of them, but the time and the willingness to put in that difficult work to highlight that and to make that a reality on a phone team with however many 100 people or whatever,
younger staff, access resources, and tying this all back together because of that experience. I have gone out of my life. I want other people to feel that. I want other people to feel that at work. I want other people to feel that in their lives. And I think the GWA is part of that, right? Like, I think, the work I do for teaching people, their own their own AI art part of it, right? Like I have a friend, a close friend that I went to high school with. That he's like my artistic idol, and I got him doing Midjourney, and he's always just been like tactile art, and someone who would be skeptical of it, right? But I just I'm really appreciative of him, listening to my perspectives, and I feel like I think he's enjoying it, right? Like I think he's getting the value out of it, right? And that's what like I've had a couple people come up to me and say, "Hey, I've been using this thing of so much; it's really changed my life." And they're like, "You told me about it." I'm like, "I have no memory of telling them that." But like when you're trying to connect people to ideas, like my wife connects people to each other, right? I connect people to ideas, to technologies, to whatever, and let them go and do their own thing with it. Matchmaking.
Well, and those stories, the people you just mentioned, are part of the legacy that you're talking about,
right?
Wanting to leave, yeah,
absolutely. People that have created their own, someone that has created their own little mini version of this, but not for wrestling. They're doing it for their own little thing. And yeah, that's really what when on the GWA website, I also share, there's a separate stream that's like behind the scenes where I'll just do videos where I'll do like a ride along where I'll create a character and you'll see, well, what goes into it. Right. And a lot of it is just me going, does this make a difference in this process? I don't know, but there's why I think I'm doing it this way. And just, I think with AI artistry is particularly, automation is good, but the journey matters. And there's value in the journey and in doing some of those things. And so I could automate a lot more of what I'm doing right now. Like, I mean, I'm a systems engineer expert. Like I could automate the shit out of this. But I don't, because it is, it's like a breathing, like breaths, like breathe in, breathe out. Like I think a little bit about it. Like it's a co-creative process, right? Mm-hmm. I'm using a program. This is not there's no humanity to AI, in and of itself, right? Like I'm bringing it and it's echoing it back to me.
Yep. That is awesome. We're going to start to wrap up, but Josh, like somebody who isn't using AI to process or make themselves better, or like, their decisions or things like that, they're not using AI for that. Give us some like easy bite size, and maybe it's the YouTube video and the prompts that you're talking about, but like where could somebody start to try to do that?
Yeah, I think, places where I think it makes a lot of sense is figuring out schedules, right? You've got to get kids here and there, and well, what are we going to do this summer? And throwing it in a prompt and saying, hey, help us come up with like, what days do we not have accounted for? That type of thing where like the tip I'll tell you is, if you want knowledge out of an AI that doesn't include deep research as part of its core component, right, or web search as part of its core component, always pour the knowledge in, right? Pour the facts in, and have it operate on your facts as opposed to divining tokens from the ether.
And could this be done like on ChatGPT?
Yes, you can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini, you can use Claude, you can use. I would use one that has at least an app on your phone, because at least that's going to be a reputable enough company that you're going to be part of at least a class action lawsuit at the worst. I'm kidding.
Yeah, of course. So you could just like, take, like you said, screenshots of schedules, or like writing up Word documents and uploading that to say, this is the body of work that I want you to respond from.
Yep.
As you, okay.
I do that all the time. I do it. There's the kind of dictation mode too, where the ChatGPT and actually most of them right now have more conversational mode, where you can just kind of speak into it and have more conversation. So I do that, sometimes when I'm driving and I want to think. about it, and I can say, well, what do you think about this, right? Or what would that be? I think that's a place, but I think the best place really is for solving household problems. How do I get this stain out of this? What do I do for that? What's the especially using a service that has access to the internet? My washing machine's making this noise. What's it for? Right? Like
Yep.
there are, and look at the response. If you're like, there's no effing way, that's
Yeah.
throw it away, right? Because one of the things I tell my wife, and that it's kind of relevant, don't look at an AI generated image more than like 3 seconds. If you can't tell what it is, throw it away because it's nothing, right? Like you're only going to, and I don't want to get into the explanations of it, but things that are AI generated frequently will have anomalies in them that are nothing, right? That are an abstract collection of pixels in a pattern.
Right.
It is, right? Don't spend time trying to make sense of it. You'll only make yourself crazy. And so I say that with text too. Don't spend too much time. Throw it away. Start over.
One thing that I did, I was trying to access my bank's website, and my computer couldn't do it, and my wife's computer could, and my phone could, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?" And so, after 2 months of finding a workaround by using a different device, I was like, I wonder if ChatGPT could help me with this. And so, I put the information in. I was like, "This is the error that I'm getting." Uploaded a screenshot. I was like, "This is what I'm trying to do. This is the browser I'm using." And it took probably 3 or 4 attempts at getting them to solve the right problem. And so once we did, because they're like, "Well, reset your router." It's like, okay, that's not, we need to go somewhere else here. So then it gave me specific, it was like, here's 4 different things that could happen. And so I was like, okay, 1 and 2 are good. 3 probably is wrong, but it said like change some setting in Chrome. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I was like, I have no idea how to do this. It gave me a step-by-step thing. And then it said, change these numbers to like 88.00.8 or like Google's, I forget exactly what it is.
DNS servers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Something like that. And the thing is, it worked. And now I can access my bank's website, and it just was like a walk along IT troubleshooting technician for free. And I was like, dude, thank you so much, ChatGPT. Yeah,
absolutely. So what had happened was that the DNS from your local laptop had gotten from your internet provider gotten stale, or it just wasn't working. And so what they did was the easy thing, which is like just use them for Google for your name servers, and then
sounds familiar. Yeah, I know nothing about it, but Josh, you are a delight, man. You're just fun. Yeah.
Doing hang out anytime.
Yeah, I would love to. And what I get from this is like, you just bring joy, man. Like hanging out with you like this and the stories that you're telling, you're bringing joy everywhere. And Will and I talk about joy a lot and finding the path of joy. And I think you've done that. And so like, kudos to you for that journey, and thank you for sharing it with us. It's been a real pleasure to hear you and to spend time with you like this. This is great.
Thanks, Patrick. It was really nice to meet you, and Will, it is always a pleasure. I would love to talk to the Curry Boys anytime. Curry Men anytime.
Business Cake is produced by Sound Ops. The music is written by Philip Cusius, and this is hosted by Will and Patrick. If you enjoyed it, please rate us 5 stars wherever you find your podcasts.